Namaste. You're listening to the Savannah Podcast. Join us on an exploration of Eastern spirituality, yoga philosophy, and conscious living for the new age. This podcast is a production of SavannahSpirit.com, where you can find a large selection of Om and yoga clothing, spiritual jewelry, and unique fair trade gifts from the Far East. Now here's your host, Ashton Szabo.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Savannah Podcast, where we talk about Eastern spirituality, yoga philosophy, and conscious living. I'm your host, Ashton Szabo. I'm really excited for today's episode because we get to do something that I've been wanting to do for a while now, and that's share some children's stories. Now, even though these stories are considered to be for children, and I try to tell them in a voice that will be most receptive to children, they're meant for all of us. They have messages within them that are very simple, very concise, and very clear for all of us. And what I encourage you to do is, I know some of you have mentioned that you have your children listen to these stories and they enjoy them. And by all means, please, they're welcome to listen to the podcasts. But importantly, I hope everyone listening to them hears the stories. And if you like the stories, make them your own. Tell them to your own children. Tell them to your friends' children. One of the stories, and the very first that we start off with today, was a story that was actually passed down through me by a gentleman by the name of One Crazy Raven. I met him at a storytelling festival recently over the summer, and he shared this story with us. He asked us to go and tell this story as well in our own voice. And it's such a beautiful, shining example of how stories spread, how they can communicate with us. That story in particular, I probably tell my daughter now at least 5 times a day. We'll do it a few times in a row back to back, and then she usually asks for it before nighttime at least once or twice. We have a lot of fun telling it. It's something really interactive you can do with your children or children in general, even if they're not your own children. But in many ways, of course, all children are our children. So I hope you enjoy these stories. I'm really excited to share them. I do plan on doing more episodes like this one, communicating children's stories and talking about some of their meanings. I hope you enjoy listening. Here we go. Once upon a time, when the world was new and animals could speak, all the animals came together for a very, very important meeting. And as they sat down and were about to start their meeting, all of a sudden outside they heard, hey-ya, 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 hey-ya. So Mountain Lion decided to stand up and go outside to see what was happening. Mountain Lion went outside and he saw a rabbit. Rabbit was there beating his drum and singing his song. Hey-ya, 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 hey-ya. So Mountain Lion came up to Bunny Rabbit and said, "Listen here, Bunny Rabbit. We've got important animal business to take care of, and we don't have time for singing and dancing and beating drums." But still, the rabbit kept singing. Hey-ya, 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 hey-ya. So Mountain Lion ripped off the bunny rabbit's right arm, and he said, "You can have this back when we're done with our important meeting." Mountain Lion went back inside into the den where they were having their important animal meeting. And right as Mountain Lion sat down and they were about to start the meeting again, they heard it outside again. Hey-ya, 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 hey-ya. So this time, big grizzly bear stands up on his 2 back feet and he walks outside and he sees Bunny Rabbit there beating the drum with his left hand and still singing his song, hey-ya, 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 hey-ya. And Grizzly Bear let out a giant growl. Listen here, Bunny Rabbit. We've got important animal business to take care of, and we don't have time for fun and games. We don't have time for singing and dancing. So Grizzly Bear ripped off the rabbit's left arm and said, "You can have this back when we're done with our important meeting," and went back inside to the den. Grizzly Bear sat down, and they were about to start the meeting again, and all of a sudden they heard it again. Hey-ya, 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 hey-ya. And this time, Coyote got up and walks outside, and he sees Bunny Rabbit. Bunny Rabbit doesn't have any arms anymore, but Bunny Rabbit still has his feet. And he's beating on the drum with his feet and still singing his song. Hey-ya, 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 hey-ya. So Coyote goes up and he says, "Listen here, Bunny Rabbit. We have really important adult animal matters to take care of. And we simply don't have time for all this singing and dancing." So Coyote bites off Rabbit's 2 legs and says, "You can have these back when we're done with our important animal business," and walks back inside. So he sits down, and they're about to start the meeting again, and they hear the song again. Hey-ya, 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 hey-ya. And this time, Mighty Eagle raises itself up, it spreads his wings, and he goes and flies outside to see what's going on. And he sees Rabbit with no arms, no legs, but still managing to fling his body around on the floor, hitting the drum, singing his song. Eagle says, "Oh, listen here, Bunny Rabbit. We've got important animal business, and we simply don't have time for all this funny business, all this dancing and singing." And so Eagle swooped down and bites off Rabbit's head and says, "You can have this back when we're done with our important meeting." And Eagle flies back inside. And they figure at this point it's done. They're done with Rabbit. Right about the time when they're about to start their meeting up again, they hear it. They hear a faint whisper from outside. Hey-ya, 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 hey-ya. Now at this point, every animal in the animal kingdom gets up and goes outside to see how this is possible. And there they see it. They see this little body of Bunny Rabbit. No arms, no legs, no head. But coming from the Bunny Rabbit's body, the beating of its heart is the song and the pound of its own heart drum. Hey-ya, 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 hey-ya. Because you see, no matter what anybody tells you, no matter how anybody tries to stop you, everyone has a song to sing, a dance to dance, a message to give the world. And people are going to try to stop you. They're going to tell you, "Hey, those are childish dreams. You can't be singing. There's important adult stuff. Get real." They're going to take things from you, try to get you to stop. But you know what? You have a song to sing. You have something to offer the world. And no matter what anyone says, no matter what anyone tries to do, you go and keep singing it. You sing the song that comes from your heart. You express your heart out into the world, no matter what anyone does or what anyone says otherwise. And the animals were so amazed. They were so amazed by Bunny Rabbit's strength of heart that of course they gave Bunny Rabbit back his legs, his arms, his head. But he didn't even need it because he had the strength of his heart. But now, fully alive back again with all of his limbs, with his head, Bunny Rabbit could sing his song, hey-ya, 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 for the whole world to hear it. So don't you forget that no matter who tries to stop you, no matter how hard they try, no matter who says it's impossible, you can't do it, you do it. And you keep singing your song. You keep beating your drum. You keep doing what you need to do to offer yourself to the world. Just like Bunny Rabbit. Our next story comes from China and is a short but wonderful story about the scholar Zhuang Zi. So once upon a time, Zhuang Zi was a very wise scholar, but he spent most of his time with his head buried in his books. He didn't much care to go outside or interact with other people. What he did care about was studying all the time. And that studying indeed made him wise, but he seemed to be missing out on an important aspect of life. Well, one day, with his head buried in a book as he walked, Zhuang Zi decided to sit down in the shade of a bamboo tree. He was so comfortable in that space that he drifted off to sleep. As he drifted off into dreamland, Zhuang Zi realized he wasn't a scholar, but instead he was a butterfly with beautiful, colorful wings. He started to fly all around. The heavy weight of his robes now entirely gone. He was light as a feather, and he soared higher and higher up into the sky. As the wind took him up into the clouds, he couldn't be happier. How wonderful it is to be a butterfly, he thought to himself. As a scholar buried in books, he never took the time to look up at the sky or look at things around him. But now, so high up into the sky, he could see everything, and he was in wonder and joy at everything he saw. He flew over mountaintops where they were so high that the snow never even melted. He flew over homes that looked like little toy homes, and he saw children outside playing that looked like little tiny ants. He even flew over seas where he saw islands that looked like turtles. And as he flew all around, he thought to himself, how nice, how amazing it was to be a butterfly. And he forgot entirely of Zhuang Zi, the scholar. He was so excited, so ecstatic, that he continued to fly further and further away. He flew out past the earth towards the moon. He flew out towards the sun and past the Milky Way galaxy. When all of a sudden, back in the bamboo grove, a branch fell from a tree and it hit the scholar Zhuang Zi on the head. He woke up, startled, thought to himself, wait a second, didn't I just have wings? Wasn't I just a butterfly? He began to look around. He felt the soft breeze on his skin. He looked at the ripe peaches in the trees around him. He could hear the soft noises of insects all around him, and he heard the nearby creek trickle by. He saw nature in a way that he had never seen it before. And he thought to himself, who am I? Am I Zhuang Zi, the scholar, dreaming that I was a butterfly? Or am I a butterfly, dreaming that I am the scholar Zhuang Zi? And in that moment, he fell deep into thought. And he realized that it doesn't matter if he is Zhuang Zi, the scholar, or a butterfly. He can always enjoy the beauty of nature all around him. So it doesn't matter who you are, what you like to do, whether you play video games, read books, are concerned with the work or school or this or that, you can always appreciate your surroundings, always appreciate nature, all around you. Just like Zhuang Zi, just like the butterfly, and just like you. Our next story also comes from China, and it's associated with the old Chinese proverb about sitting in a well and looking up at the sky. Now, I can't help to compare this story in many ways to our current political climate and some things going on in the United States of America right now, but this is our children's episode, so we'll keep all of that aside. And it's a great, great story. So once upon a time, there was a frog who lived in a well. And this little frog was always boasting to all of his friends that came by about how amazing his well was. Every time a crab would come by, or a bug, or a fish, or a tadpole, or a dragonfly, he would tell them, "Look how amazing my well is. The sky is bright and clear above me. There's no better place in the world than my well." He noticed a little tadpole playing in the water, and he's like, "Hey, see? Look at all this water for you to enjoy. Truly, there is no better place in the world than my well." But eventually, his friends started to get pretty tired of all of his boasting and bragging about how special his well was. And they eventually started to ignore him. But one day, a big turtle from the great Eastern Ocean crawled right past his well. And the frog spotted him. He's like, "Oh my gosh, this is so amazing. Look at that turtle. Hey, turtle, hey friend, over here. This is amazing. Come pay me a visit." And so the turtle came on over, looked down inside the well, and said, "Wow. That's a well you've got there. Doesn't look very comfortable, though." "What? Not comfortable? This well is the most comfortable place in the whole wide world. I've got all the water I need to drink. I can swim around. I can float around all day as much as I want. I'm basically living like a king. How is it not comfortable down here?" And so the frog starts to swim around and tries to show the turtle just how great it is down there in the well. "Looks like you think life is pretty great down there in that little well," said the turtle. "Well, of course it is. Life is amazing down here. Here, why don't you come on down and I'll show you?" "Well, I can't," said the turtle. "I won't fit." "What do you mean you won't fit? I see your head. You can totally fit in my well." "Well, that's because you can only see my head, and my body is actually much bigger. And truly, as far as turtles go, I'm actually quite small. Most of my friends from the Eastern Sea are a lot bigger than I am." Wait, said the frog. "You mean there are creatures out there that are bigger than you?" And the turtle let out a big laugh. "Much bigger, way bigger than me. I can't even begin to tell you how big the Eastern Ocean is." "Well, it can't possibly be much bigger than my well," said the frog. "Are you kidding me?" said the turtle. "The Eastern Ocean is so big that nobody knows how big or how deep it actually is. Long ago, in ancient times, there were floods for 9 years and the Eastern Ocean never rose. Another time, there was drought, no rain, for another 9 years, and the water of the Eastern Ocean never went down. It's so big that nothing can change it." And the little frog, he wasn't so sure of all of this. He said to the turtle, he's like, I think you're making all of this up. I don't know if I believe in this Eastern Ocean thing." "I'll show it to you," said the turtle. but you have to come out of your little well. And so in that moment, the little frog started to climb towards the top of his well. When he climbed as high as he could get, he got his legs ready to make the final leap to jump up and out of the well. And as he did, he screamed, "Hurrah!" And he landed on some sand just to the outside of his well. He was dizzy. The sun was brighter than he'd ever seen it. It was enormous. The sky was huge, and Frog started to get dizzy. "Are you okay?" asked Turtle. To which Frog replied, "I kind of always thought the sky was round and just the size of the opening of my well. I never knew it was so huge. And the sun, it's so bright. It's blinding my eyes. I never knew it was so big." And he looked around the horizon. He couldn't even see the edge of the sky. And in front of him, he could see the great Eastern Ocean. But it went so far that it looked like it had absolutely no end. He was completely dumbfounded. He didn't know what to do, what to think. The world was so much bigger than he thought. And Turtle came along and let out a very compassionate and kind laugh and said, "You see, my friend, now do you understand why I said your well is so small? I'm sure it's a great place, but there are many great places out there in the world. You just have to be willing to leave the comfort of your own well to see them." The frog realized how arrogant he had been. That being so proud and boastful of his tiny little well, he was shutting himself off to the whole rest of the world. So he could go back into his well, or he could go explore the world, but now he knew. Now he knew that the world was large and beautiful and grand. And even though he still loved his little well, he knew it was just a tiny, tiny little piece of this wonderfully large and amazing, beautiful world we all live in. Well, everybody, that's our podcast for today. I hope you've enjoyed these stories. Even though they are considered to be children's stories, they have a lot for us, whether we are a child or adult, to learn from and enjoy. And while it would be great if you allowed your children to listen to these stories on the podcast, I actually encourage you to listen to the stories and make them your own and tell them to your children in your own voice. My daughter and I have a game that we play where we make up stories on the fly. We might see a little object or a card or a picture, and we start to make up a story on it. And it sparks their imagination, their creativity. You can play puppets with your children, which is another thing that I do with my daughter regularly. And we create these wonderful stories. And you can give them your own meanings, your own morals. And it's such a great way to interact with your children, to help them learn and to understand things. Because eventually then I can simply go back to my daughter and say, "Hey, remember that story about the rabbit? Remember that story about the frog?" In whatever situation it may be, and she gets it, she understands the message. And that's such an important, wonderful gift that we can offer children, whether they're your biological children or your friends' children or anything. Please tell your children stories, spark their imagination, and get them to learn and develop a lifetime of love for stories and storytelling. For those that have listened to our podcast and enjoy it and leave us reviews and stars on iTunes, thank you so much. I want to take a quick moment to read a recent review by someone. It's by Dr. Gordo. It says, "Good and getting better. Being relatively new to yoga and Eastern philosophy, I find this podcast to be one of the most relatable and grounded ones out there. I appreciate the fact that the podcast remains informative without being preachy. Ashton does a great job of taking old convoluted stories and relating them back in a way that's simple to grasp without losing the essence of the teachings. For that alone, I'm a regular listener. Beyond that, the guests have been constantly interesting. Whether you're new to this all, like me, or a 90-year-old sadhu, there's always something positive to bring home after listening. Thank you, Dr. Gordo, for your kind words. I really appreciate it. It's one of the things I work on very much. I get a lot of various stories and philosophies in a very serious context at times, and so I try really hard to make them relatable and understandable in our everyday life and context. So it always makes me happy to hear that people appreciate that and get and grasp that aspect of the stories and everything else, and that you're enjoying our guests as well. So thank you, everyone. Please go on iTunes, make your own reviews, leave us comments, leave us ratings. We really appreciate it. It helps to spread the podcast out there. As always, thank you to Zach Cooper, our sound engineer, for making all of these podcasts sound so great. Thank you to Savannah Spirit for allowing these podcasts to be possible. For all of our listeners out there, child or adult, thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderfully present moment. Namaste.
You've been listening to the Savannah Podcast. To find out more about Savannah, go to savannahspirit.com or follow Savannah on Facebook at facebook.com/Savannah Spirit. For daily inspiration, check out our blog at savannaeast.com. Be sure to join us next week for a new episode, and thank you for listening to the Savannah Podcast.